Adam, we better start finally recording this podcast, or you better eat that trash can.
Yes, I think you're right. We probably should. As everybody, all three people know that are watching this, Action Hero Arcade, starring yours truly and Alba over there. We are definitely not doing a conspiracy theory podcast. We are solely based on pop culture. So that being said,
we promise we're doing a movie podcast, even though today it may sound a little bit like a conspiracy theory podcast.
It's primarily going to deal with conspiracy theories.
Listen, it's not my fault that John Carpenter apparently was able to see into the future.
Dude, so many things. I was listening to Deltron today, and he said something about there's a line about weed being billed to insurance, and that album came out in like 2003.
Is that the one with Virus on it?
Yeah,
dude, that's a great album.
Deltron 3030. Yeah, fantastic album. But like, we're not far off from that now, and it's only 2023.
Well, you know what? It makes me think, Adam, is this a constant theme throughout history that only people in certain age groups are able to see? Or is this idea that's freshly new? This idea of covertly being taken over by some... Because, it's funny, like, for the purposes of this film, of course we're talking about the classic John Carpenter's They Live Today. But my question is this something that is a fairly new idea in human history, or do you think this has been going on forever and it just every generation has their own version of this?
As far as it's always been sub-aliens for, lizard men or whatever. There's always
so you need an archetype as the bad guy, right? So like in this film they're the blue aliens, right? But I'm saying that is this idea of there being a powerful secret culture covertly taking over the rest of the set.
I mean, it's probably I mean, 20th century, I would assume.
I feel like, there's this idea. there's a concept called the Roman circus, and I think we may have talked about it before.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel like the idea that like I said, in this movie they're the blue aliens, but in any other version, you could say the elite, you could say the Illuminati, whatever word you want to use for that, right? But I'm curious because this movie takes kind of a stab at capitalism. Like I see that, like it's taking a huge stab at capitalism, which is fine. But like what I noticed more than anything is this idea that I really love, that I really think that Carpenter very subtly touched on, but he did a service. It's this idea of you trying to explain to people around you that we're all being fooled. Like this concept of like, hey, everybody, you please look. Like, just look for a second, and everyone's like, okay, whatever you say, dude. And that theme really resonated with me in this movie. Like this idea of like, please just look through the glasses. That's all I'm asking you.
Right, and nobody but believing you, being the like Chicken Little or something. Everybody just blowing you off. Yeah. He does that well. I also, to your question earlier about like sub-aliens for ruling classes and the corruption. Like I think obviously the corruption's been there for as long as people have been people, but I think as we move forward as a society, the small collective that are seeing the corruption does grow, right? Yeah. Like initially it's just like the four poor people standing outside the Roman shitter waiting to get their turn, and then it's everybody starts hearing the news and it starts spreading, and they go, you know what, that Caesar guy did do that. Hey, so I think
you know what else is really interesting. By the way, before we get too ahead of ourselves, let me just say, we are talking about the classic John Carpenter's They Live.
We're going to remind you every 2 minutes Otherwise,
yeah, because we're going down we're definitely going to fall down some rabbit holes today. But there's one thing that I do kind of I'm too impatient to wait. I would need to hear your opinion on. There's a character in this film, and I can tell you his name in a minute. But he was what's his name? God, I can't find it right now. He was the guy when they were at the homeless shelter at the beginning. He was the guy around the campfire trying to tell everybody that they should be hopeful, that they should have faith in the system, that things will work out. And ultimately, it turns out that when they find out that there are humans working with these blue aliens, it's that guy is the one that introduces them.
And like the scummy, like Southern wheeling dealing guy.
But rewind all the way back to the beginning of the film. He's one of the drifters around the campfire who's real scraggly like everyone else. But he's literally like, no, everybody, don't question it.
Yeah, he's the one that shuts off the TV when it first comes on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which, looking back, until you said... Okay, go on with your question.
Oh, no, but what I think is really interesting is, again, along with my point of, like, hey, you need to look through please just look through the glasses and acknowledge this reality that's happening. The idea that there are people who are like you working against you actively, trying to gaslight you into thinking that this is all okay. And I really... God damn, dude. There's a lot of heavy shit in this movie, but that is something that really resonated with me.
Even the love interest in this, we find out at the... structure is to hell on this one. I mean, we're going to be jumping around. If you haven't seen the movie, by the way, it's, I don't know, like 40 years old at this point. Just watch it. It's great. We'll fill you in the plot points as we remember.
You know what? And as an American, it's there's always a list of like quote unquote perfect movies with like Jurassic Park and Goodfellas, like movies that just people should see. But as an American, I think it's really important to watch this film. Like there's something really specific that as an American you get a specific perspective on this film that I don't think a lot of the world could have.
Right. And I think right off the bat, so like the chick, I mean, she's working for them too the whole time,
yeah,
because she initially lies and says there's no satellite at the place to throw them off.
I always hate doing this, like being a father of two girls. Like I always hate being this guy, but right away I always assume that the female in the film is full of shit. Like right away, I assumed like, oh, this lady's full of shit, and she did not take long to confirm those beliefs for me.
Yeah, it's true. Well, it's funny. So I don't watch this movie often. I think because it upsets me. Not that this movie's horrifying. If you took away all the special effects, this movie would still be horrifying to me because it's not that far off from the truth.
You know what? It's so crazy you say that. This movie often is referred to in pop culture as something that's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like kind of silly. A lot of one-liners. A lot of the dialogue written for Roddy Piper is everything he says is a one-liner essentially.
Right.
And like there's this level of campiness that's attached to it, and it's deserved. Of course.
But I think they had to do that.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
To offset how serious the content was.
Yeah, as soon as you look past all the campy stuff, it starts getting very uncomfortable because it's just so real. Like it's so visceral feeling, and it's such a... All right, so before we get...
Also, if you take out... So, I realized it this time. Like, a lot of this movie is filler. Mm-hmm. It's just a lot of, hey, we got Roddy... Who's he going to fight? Because they got Roddy, right? But you take those parts out, this movie's only going to be like 60 minutes or less because you don't really need to tell that much more because it's, again, short, like it's pretty easy to point out corruption in society. Like, we don't need many examples. We can't drag this on forever. Just look around. So, here's this guy fighting. That's essentially what they did. And
let me put an asterisk next to that, though, Adam. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I don't want anybody watching this to think that what you're saying is absolutely right. They get to the point that we're being played very quickly, and it's pretty obvious from the jump, and it's hard to kind of elaborate on that, right? But I don't want anybody to think that the pacing in this film is off.
Oh no, by no means. No, even
awesome.
even with the fighting, like you don't feel like there's a law. You never feel like, hey, this fighting was put here because there's nothing else going on. Like you're into it.
Yeah,
I'm invested the whole time, but I only noticed it because I'm taking notes. But also the Keith David Roddy fight scene is about half the movie.
Dude,
okay, that's like a 40-minute fight scene.
So good. It's so good. Hold on. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start from the jump. We have Roddy Piper as our main protagonist playing John Nada, or is it Jack Nada?
Yeah, I don't even know.
I think essentially it's just Nada, meaning nothing. Like he's supposed to be a nameless drifter.
He doesn't have documents or anything, right? Because he was worried about getting paid and stuff. He's just a drifter. Because this is around... I mean, it's taking place in present day 80s, right, with Wall Street and everything. So you have it. The successful aliens are Wall Street, or those that buy into the Wall Street system, and then it's juxtaposing that with the rampant homelessness that was going on at the time.
Yeah, so this is late 80s. This is actually, it's funny. I was watching this and I thought this kind of had like a RoboCop kind of vibe, but I actually. This did come out after RoboCop, so if it did influence John Carpenter, it wouldn't surprise me. I thought that RoboCop would have came after this, but this actually was released after RoboCop. So.
Is this supposed? I forget. Is this take place in a real city, or is it like some fictitious?
Yeah, I think it's San Francisco. I'm fairly certain
that's what I thought.
It takes place in San Fran.
Okay,
but so he rolls into town as a drifter looking for work. He goes to unemployment. The line's out the door. No one can get any work.
Love the unemployment lady, man. She's so just...
Well, you know what? Even seeing the guy in a wheelchair with one leg wheel past Roddy Piper discouraged right as he gets there is like, oh boy. Like it really sets a tone that these are hard times. And you have this filmed at the end of the 80s, which the 80s is often referred to as like the era of excess. Right, as you said to yourself, like the Wall Street, like cocaine use, like just over the top shit.
It was excess in either direction, right? Excess wealth and excess poverty. Like that was like the wealth gap was enormous at that time.
Yeah, they were like inversely proportional, and I think Carpenter does a really good job at setting that up to making you feel like, oh man, these are hard times for a lot of people right now. And he ends up meeting, while looking for work, ending up on a job site looking for work, he ends up meeting Keith David. And
who doesn't like to be followed.
Yeah, well, yeah. But what I think is really cool about this is post The Thing, right? This is after The Thing. Okay. And John Carpenter loved Keith David's performance so much that he specifically wrote this role for Keith David.
That's awesome.
Right.
I didn't know that. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, so we're introduced to the second most important character in this film. And his name is... It's so funny because I never learn these people's names because I just refer to them as the actors' names.
Yeah, right.
But we have right here is Frank. And Frank sees this drifter and he's willing to help Roddy out and take him back to this which is essentially a homeless shelter. It's an encampment. It's like a little shanty town.
Yeah.
And this is where things start to get interesting. You have this really cool scene at the beginning where Roddy Piper walks past this like street preacher who is talking about the end of days and how, we've been corrupted and that there's a secret evil force controlling nature. And even as a regular American in today's world, like, it's funny. I feel like that guy is always there and everyone always ignores that guy and calls that guy crazy, right? Always.
Well, it's because there's so many of those guys, though, right?
Like the Jim Bakers.
They're everywhere.
But it's so funny, like, they do this, they set him up, it's a blind preacher who kind of comes off as a crazy person, like, in his mannerisms, the way he's speaking, but everything he's saying, not one drop of it's actually crazy. No. Like, not even a little bit.
He's wearing a preacher outfit, holding a picket sign.
Yeah, no, but there's this. What's really interesting, and this only further adds to my points. There's like a lot of really cool. There's like a lot of duality in this film where it's presented as one thing, but it's supposed to mean something entirely the opposite.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole film in general, I guess, is sort of doing that, right? It's using media to show us the influence media has had on us in society in general. But.
Yeah, and so you have at this homeless in shelter, you have there is a church across the street, and there are people from the church that are coming over to help the homeless shelter and cooking for people, fixing stuff up for people. And Frank introduces Nada to these guys and say, hey, if you need anything, this is who you talk to. Kind of setting up this idea of this weird little shanty community. And you're almost at this point, you see children running around, and it's already tough enough seeing kids in a homeless encampment. But it almost seems like everyone's happy. Like, at least they're together.
It seems like there's a semblance of community. Like, people have things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're have a bunch of food. It actually look pretty good. I would eat.
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, if you're down and out and you're completely out of your luck, that wouldn't be the worst place to end up.
No.
But what I think is really interesting, Adam, is so you have this sense of like you see the struggle that everyone's going through, but you also have this close-knit sense of community where everyone's kind of taking care of each other. And in this little shanty town, you have these little sections where someone has one TV and a bunch of people are all huddled around a TV, and they're all watching the regular programming that everyone watches. But as this is happening, this signal keeps coming through of what appears to be like this Sigmund Freud looking guy who's like, they're in complete control of us. Like, we are the resistance. We need to stop. And while this is happening, everyone is getting like a piercing headache. Like, everyone's like, oh my God, just shut this off. Right. And I think, again, this whole movie's symbolism, but right out of the gate, you're really setting up this idea of like it's painful. The truth is painful. Like, hearing this and being aware of what's actually going on is actually painful.
Right, especially in, that position, or even the masses, the general populace position. Like, what are you going to do, right? So there you are. Let's say. Not a corruption, not a conspiracy theorist podcast. In the terms of the movie, here we go.
Yes.
Stay in line. Yes. So in this fictitious universe where there's some sort of people, imagine that's happening, and you find out all this information. Like, you can't. What is singular one you going to do against essentially a immovable force? Like, that's the terrifying thing about this movie is just that feeling of overwhelmness, like just helplessness, I guess.
Yeah, you're talking about a group of people that already are down on their luck. You already have a group of people that are already disadvantaged, and it turns out, ironically, they're the ones that bring it all down. Like, the people with the least to lose, so to speak, are the ones that are actually able to stand up to this all-powerful, and when I say all-powerful, I mean galaxy-reaching, global, galactic conspiracy level.
They got transport watches and everything.
I think from this point, you start to see Roddy Piper now is starting to realize that the people at this encampment that are taking care of it from the church are doing some shady stuff in the middle of the night. I think that he makes
he notices that the preacher is, I think, so you got the broadcast going on, the guy's spouting all the corruption, and then you have preacher who's you think is still just saying crazy stuff, but Roddy notices that
blatantly speaking the actual truth of the matter, but he comes off as a crazy person.
Right. So he notices that they're saying the same thing, and he sees the one. I love the guy that sets up the homeless shelter. He's like the. There's always that character in like this era movie. He's got like the greased back hair. He's got the members only jacket on, and he's like. You look at him and you're like, you look like a dirt. No, you probably used to be a dirtball, but you're a nice guy now.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Like there's always like that kind of vibe,
yeah.
And I love that guy. Like in this, he does a great job. His character's great. The actor that plays him is great. I don't know his name, but he does a good job.
Ironically, he comes off like they present him to be like the shadiest up front, right? Like they present him to be this like, so what's this sneaky guy doing? I thought he helped people. Why is he sneaking away in the middle of the night? So Roddy Piper in his like literal blatant curiosity. He couldn't be more obvious. It's so funny. Like for someone who
walks across the street too, doesn't even like.
Yeah, he just walks in the front door and he just starts like looking around. It's so funny.
Knocks in a cabinet and just.
Yeah, like completely not even under the radar at all. Just walks in and starts checking shit out. But he stumbles upon the idea, like, so when he goes in the church, this is a really cool thing too. There's a lot of little details that John Carpenter put in this film that I think really set up the mood that you wouldn't think are important, but when you put them all together, it really creates a sense of atmosphere. And he walks into the church, and the singing that you hear emanating from outside the church is actually a tape recorder being played. And it's being played very loudly so that the conspirators in the church can have a conversation over the recording because they're being monitored, right? And already you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
What the fuck is happening? That they got a secret meeting base in a church, like what the fuck? And the greasy guy that you're referring to is trying to basically tell everybody, like, we're fucked here.
Yeah, well, he tells them because, like, that Southern scumbag undercover guy that's actually working for the oligarchy or whatever. Yeah. Like the broadcast kept fading in and out. They only got like 10 seconds, and then that guy comes and shuts it off. Mm-hmm. Like it's not working. So the greasy guy, as we will now refer to him, greasy guy is informing because you find out that they're just broadcasting it from the church. Like this is the whole setup of the scene, and greasy guys letting them know, like, we barely got anything through. Like, we gotta try again. We gotta get a bigger sig. We need a new plan, essentially. And then you have
shit's falling apart. It ain't working.
And you got Roddy over there doing his best stomp and sneak in the other room and falls into a dang closet.
Greasy guy is Gilbert, by the way. His
Gilbert.
name is Gilbert. Gilbert.
That feels better because he ends up being a super nice guy, and I hate calling him Greasy guys.
But so yeah, you find out that these broadcasts that are coming through and giving people headaches, and they're like, shut this shit off. It turns out they're doing this from the church to get people aware that we're essentially completely overruled by this alien elite class of people. Right.
And then there's the issue of that box of sunglasses that Roddy stumbles into, right? Because he's he falls in. He's the cabinet that he's messing around in. He finds this box, and it's just full of sunglasses.
Yeah, there's like the chemistry station where there's like vials and shit.
None of this is adding up because you got music that's not actually being sung. You got the meeting and the TV thing going on. He finds sunglasses and chemicals. So how they're connected, we don't know yet. But he takes a pair and he rolls out.
Yeah, again. Well, he actually runs into the blind preacher.
That's right.
And the blind preacher is like the blind preacher run. And again, like I said, there's the whole idea of this film is like these submersive ideas, right? And they're the whole movie's flooded, and it's this great scene where the blind preacher goes up and feels Roddy Piper's face. Right? Mm-hmm. And because you don't know what's going on yet, you're just assuming it's a blind man trying to see who he's talking to. But what it is the preacher seeing if it's an alien. He's feeling his face to see if he's one of the bad guys. And again, just little details like that, just sprinkled to this whole film, make it perfect. Like, it's such a perfect movie because of little things like that.
And this is also after he comes out. This is where they raid the village because it's like right after the broadcast.
Well, another thing we failed to mention is as Roddy Piper is spending time in this little shantytown commune thing, there are police helicopters that are circling and seem to be keeping their eye on that general area, whether it be the church or that commune area. There seems to be police activity, and they're all checking out. And as he leaves, we're talking Stallone just drove into a mansion level police force. I mean, they bring in the heavy guns, dude.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's like 2 or 3 bulldozers. They're just mowing through
a whole line of riot shield police officers. And this screams RoboCop. This is where I was really starting to see the comparisons between RoboCop and this.
The power. I actually, it was upsetting, but so after that whole scene, it cuts to next day. And
yeah, and they're kind of going through like the rubble of everything.
Yeah, and you just see this family
just
searching
going,
through,
yeah,
and this mom just like crying over these jeans that she can't wear anymore, and you're just like, that's all she had.
Yeah,
like,
dude. That's
just
it's heavy, you know. Again, like we mentioned before, there's a level of camp in this film that kind of makes you kind of almost tongue in cheek.
You're basically watching The Road, right? Like,
yeah, but honestly, you're right. Without it, it's too heavy, dude.
It's a very dark film. Yeah.
And what's so great about this is Rodney Piper, at this point, I think just kind of realizes. So he finds us. He has the box of sunglasses, and very intelligently, he ditches them in an area where no one will get to, but he knows where they're at, right? He like stuffs them in a back alley underneath a trash can or something. Like no one's gonna know where this is at. Very intelligently, and he has the pair of glasses. And I don't think he understands how amazing they are. And at this point, he's just trying to see like what is the deal with these, right? So he's putting them on, looking at stuff.
Which is such a cool scene when it keeps switching. Like this whole bit here, the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, the middle chunk of this movie is really cool. Yeah.
As everything, because it keeps going from first person to him, and so, it's also like when you wear the sunglasses, it's black and white.
Yeah, a first person black and white POV, and
which is such a cool effect, right? Yes. Like, of course, if they're gonna like fool you, they're gonna like that's so clever.
And the way it's edited too is really cool. When you can see him pull on and off the glasses, like there's a lot of cool camera work here in this film. And John Carpenter is always doing shit like this. He had cool camera work in Halloween. He's really good at these really cool, innovative shots that I don't think a lot of people can pull off.
I mean, from the first person in this movie, I love it. I know he does in Halloween 1, but a lot in Halloween 2. Just any time in the first two Halloween movies where you see Michael, but no one else sees Michael. Like, the way he does it better than most. And that long tracking shot of the dog in the beginning of the thing. Like, those shots, they're great. They're just
like, honestly, if you're a person who's into cinematography, or you just like the idea of camera work, or you're really interested in things like that, Carpenter's got to be one of your guys, dude, because he just does things with a camera that I don't think a lot of people could probably guess would work before he could do it. I bet he was saying, "Hey, I could pull this shot off," and producers were going, maybe."
And like most, I mean, especially in horror, but most innovations are budget constraints, and I feel like
that's true.
That's probably where he works best.
Yeah, so. I would agree, and I think he would probably agree with that too. But that leads us to this really cool pocket of this movie where Roddy Piper is starting to realize what the glasses do, and what the glasses do. And again, if you haven't seen this, shame on you, but it's been this visual has been thrown all throughout pop culture. I think there's even a company called Obey that sells this merch and stuff. But you see the T-shirt I'm wearing if you're watching this right now. But essentially,
because you messed up the feed, I can't. So can you describe it to me?
Oh, does my shirt say it's like a beach? It's like a pretty woman laying on a beach drinking a drink. Is that what you see right now?
I don't see anything.
It's like a logo. It's like Coors Light. And then you put on the glasses and you actually see. No, so it sets up this really cool shot that when he puts on the glasses, all these billboards are telling you these subliminal messages. You would look at, just for the sake of argument, say it's like a McDonald's advertisement or something. You would look at it, and actually what it's saying is consume, spend money.
Which I loved. I love the tongue-in-cheek, just, fuck you. This is... buy this shit.
I there's one that says don't question authority.
Yeah.
Like it's really, and it's done so well, and there's this really great shot of him going past one of these like sidewalk news rack salesmen, that have all the magazines.
Yeah.
And each magazine, and whoever put this together in their production team, this must have taken forever to do, but God bless them for doing it because it's such a great shot. Each individual magazine has its own unique subliminal message.
Yep, and then he opens it too.
He goes through a magazine. Oh, dude, it's so genius, man. When this is where he comes across his first blue alien, right? And these are the people that have taken over our culture, and what they're able to do is they've blended in and made you think they're humans, but with the glasses, you're able to see that this is their true form. You're able to see everything for how it actually is with the sunglasses on, right? So Rowdy Piper, and this is so cool because I'm going to have a criticism in a minute of Rowdy Piper, but in this scene, he is so stunned by what he's seeing, he doesn't say a word. He literally just stares with his jaw hitting the floor, and it actually saves his ass because that's what he should have been doing the whole time, is just not saying a fucking word.
Are you gonna get okay? I think I know.
But the alien pulls out a wad of cash, and when Roddy Piper looks at the wad of cash, all of the cash says "This is your God" on it, and it's so good. Like, it's so good, man. Like, John Carpenter is killing it.
Wrong. I mean, that's the only true religion we have, and not a conspiracy podcast now.
Yeah, but that's what gets. This is where it starts. If you don't have the camp, you start to realize the parallels of your actual reality, your day-to-day life with this movie, and it starts to really become anxiety-inducing.
Yeah, when life imitates art, it's not always great.
So where are we at now, Adam? He's starting to come to terms with like him.
So. Yeah, he goes to this is just like him slowly. So this is him thinking also that he can stop it, right? He's thinking so he gets to the newsstand and doesn't say anything to that guy, but he goes into
a supermarket. That's right. Yeah, he goes to a supermarket. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And gets spotted, right? Because somebody's like, we have somebody can see us.
Oh, so wait, no, this is great. We've been going down the reality rabbit hole, but this is actually a really great comedic part of the movie where he sees another blue alien. It's this old lady now, and he's trying to convince everybody around him, like, look at this fucking thing. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this thing's face? And everyone's like, what are you talking about? He's like, there's not...
It's this old bat that he's like just...
He's just talking shit to an old woman's face, and he's like, "You ugly bitch! What the fuck is wrong with your face?" So
but he still doesn't realize how big the issue is. I guess.
Yeah.
Like he's like.
It's like he's going through like an acid trip. Honestly, like that's how they shoot it. Like he's almost like he's going through some sort of weird drug trip, and it's really, this scene is so fucking funny, dude.
He does because he How does it? Cause the cops get caught. No, it's the bank.
So he tells everybody in the store, look at this ugly bitch. The ugly bitch goes to her Power Rangers wristwatch and goes, we have one that can see. That's and he starts tripping. He's like, what the fuck? And he falls backwards and he dips because he's like, what the fuck? Because now every blue alien in the store is now walking towards him, talking to their watch, and he starts wigging the fuck out. Like, I got to get the fuck out of here. This is fucked up.
Right. But and then the next shot is
the police show up. He's trying to run away from the grocery store, and two police officers show up, and this is the grand reveal. This is where we start to peel apart the plot of this movie. And the police go, we want to know where you got your fancy little sunglasses. Let's make a deal. Like, you tell us what we want to know and we'll take care of you. Like, this is something bigger than you could even imagine. Like, it would be better if you just sided with us instead of fight against us, right?
Right.
And Rowdy Piper, like with the big old fucking nutsack that motherfucker has, looks them dead in the face and tells them to eat shit. He's like, I don't know what the fuck you things are doing, but suck my dick, no fucking way. And it's so gangster, bro.
Yeah. And this is where he just beats him up, right?
Yeah. Rowdy Piper just kicks the shit out of these two cops.
Yeah. And then he steals their gun, right, and winds up. Like, how does he get? Because he rolls into the bank.
After he beats up the cops, he takes the gun, the one revolver off the one officer, shoots the other officer, and then he goes into their police car and snags a shotgun like a gangster.
That's what I thought. But he only kills, which is nice, because he kills the two aliens. Like,
and that's another. You know what's funny? I'm glad you brought that up because that's important. Rowdy Piper does not harm anybody who's not a blue alien, with the exception of the people that have sided with them later in the movie, but we'll get to that. Yeah, at this point, every time, as he's running away from the two police officers, he just fucked up. He runs into a third police officer who's not a blue alien, and he just tells him to drop his gun and get the fuck out of there, right? So he's really setting up this idea that, like, he is a good guy. This isn't just some psycho who's fucking snapped. Like, he literally sees the difference, and he's taking care of his fellow man, as it were.
Right. And then he just stumbles into the next building.
No. Wait, we're skipping. He gets spotted by this fucking floating alien disc in the alleyway.
That's right, because they got orbs now. And that you can still only see with the glasses.
Yeah, and he makes the greatest line. He's like, "You've come to tell on me. I don't like that." And he fucking shoots it out of the sky like a gangster, right? And from that point, he is now like, I got to get the fuck off the street and I got to get indoors. And he runs into a bank.
Which I don't think he knew. Like, this isn't premeditated in any way.
No, this is a dude that's trying to understand what the fuck is happening around him.
I love that scene, though, because here he is just like, fuck it, I got to get in this building.
Stumbles into a bank.
Just armed, too. Like, he's got a shotgun.
Looking like John Rambo.
Everybody just stops and looks at him, and then you have the iconic line.
The most famous line in the entire film, yeah.
You know this line, and it's, "You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding."
No. It's what was the line? "Hold on to your butts." No, that wasn't. It wasn't that one. Shit. What was the line, Adam? It's
"Come with me if you want to live."
Come with me if you want to live. That's you nailed it. That's what it was. Oh, get to the chopper. No, it's please. You got to do it. I'm gonna give it too much. I'm too excited about it. You got to do it.
No, I'll allow you. Go ahead. We need excitement.
So Rowdy Piper stumbles into this bank with a shotgun in tow. Like, it's so funny. And he stops and he notices the whole bank. The whole bank stops and notices him. At which point he declares, "Fuck it. I'm not running anymore. We're just going to do this now." And he looks everybody in the eyes and says, "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum." And just starts fucking dumping rounds in the people with the shotgun. It's so gangster, bro.
Yeah, what a preposterous... Like, imagine this whole scenario. You're running from some orb and blue aliens. Bam, I'm in this thing. Ah, shit. What do I say? Fuck it. Bubblegum.
You know what? I don't know. See, this is a double-edged sword. I don't know if it was advantageous for human beings that the blue aliens were discovered by the dumbest man possible, or it was good because it allowed him to just get through this, right? He was so dumb. Everything that Rowdy Piper says in this film is the cheesiest, nonsensical line. Like, even when he's coming to terms with what's happening, he's like, "Daddy's not a little boy anymore." It's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, on set they were like, "This isn't a goddamn match, Roddy." Fuck it.
Just let him all of his lines stink of wrestling promo. And I'm totally okay with it, but it works.
It works well.
It works. And the only reason it works is because if you had real dialogue for these moments, it would be crippling realizations of how fucked we actually are. Like, back to our original point. If he doesn't do that, what he ends up saying is he starts crying and goes, "I knew everything was a scam from the beginning. Everything's awful."
He gets the shotgun from the cop's car and just turns it on himself. Like, that's the movie.
Oh, fuck this. Yeah, dude. But that's so...
And as the point of this podcast is to, like, make fun of these movies, I'm not gonna make fun of Roddy because, one, I'm terrified of him. Like, even still, he'd kick my ass. I will make fun of Stallone because that man's had so many shoulder surgeries. He can't. He's an action star. It's fine. He can't get me. But no, I'm not touching Roddy.
Yeah, he did great. Roddy Piper could probably actually fuck someone up. Though, you know what, man? It's so crazy. He's he looks fucking awesome. Like he is
huge,
in
dude.
great shape for this.
I have a note here. It's just Roddy is fucking jacked. Like the when
jacked.
He's doing his whore bath in the sink or whatever after the construction. Like, I mean, I guess the lighting's just not super great at WrestleMania because.
Well, no, you know what? I would think when you're also surrounded, when every single person is also in really good shape, it starts to kind of become.
It's true. Yeah, you stack him up against like. Yeah.
But it's funny you say that because we do talk about these action movies, and a lot of times these protagonists are in the best shape ever. Like the best shape you could possibly be in. And ultimately, they're trying to look like Roddy Piper.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there wasn't much training. I mean, there was probably no...
He probably just stopped wrestling and went and did this movie with no...
Yeah, that was just his Wednesday body.
Well, you know what? Keith David, as he usually plays like an everyman kind of guy. And even Keith David's fucking pretty jacked in this movie, too.
He's the biggest I've seen Keith David. I mean,
when they're standing next to each other, Roddy Piper definitely looks more muscular, but Keith David doesn't look like a bitch next to Roddy Piper.
Well, he's a tall guy. He's a taller guy, I think.
They both... It's so funny, you know, I make the joke that a lot of the movies we talk about, they remind me of like our dads and stuff. But really, like you got Keith David and Roddy Piper. These are two man's men right here. Like they really are for the era. They are the shit. That is the definition of a man.
He's just so I mean, the whole interaction of them too, like when they have that big showdown in the alley and like it's very period-esque, like the interaction and like, no, fuck, put on these glasses. No, fuck you, I'm not doing it. Like it's very much of the 80s time. Like, no, I'm not going to listen to you.
Another great line here, Adam. You better put on these glasses or start eating that trash can.
Yeah.
But this scene, again, it's funny. We're going to keep coming back to this because it's littered through the whole movie. But this scene is so fucked up. It's so fucked when Rowdy is trying to convince Keith David of what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now he goes...
Before we...
Oh, yeah, we are jumping ahead.
That's just like... Yeah, it's fine. Before we move on from the bank, though, I did think it was a nice bit of commentary. Like a majority of everyone in that bank is an alien because it's a bank, right? Because they're wealthy, it's money.
Yeah, that's actually really clever. I didn't notice that, but you're right.
Yeah, it was well done.
In the centers where you would think it would be most advantageous for a small covert people to control, you see the most of them. You know, whether it be at the news station or the bank or wherever. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's clever.
Finances and media. Yeah, that's.
Oh, so what he actually, while he's escaping from the bank, this is where we're introduced to the female protagonist of this movie.
Yeah, I guess we shouldn't skip too far. We'll get to the fight soon.
Yeah, he actually essentially abducts this woman in a parking garage. They get into her car, and he's like, "You're driving me out of here." Wow, he has a shot.
He tries to play it cool, but this is where it gets a little creepy because he's like, "You live alone" or something, and she's like, "No," and then he's like, "Do you live alone?" Like he just forces himself.
So he's trying to set up a contingency plan for himself, and she's obviously trying to protect herself. Right. But he sees through her bullshit, and every time he asks her a question and she tries to lie to him, he aggressively and kind of uncomfortably asserts himself. So yeah, there is a weird energy.
Say, the chemistry in this movie, like with what we're about to say with the fight scene and like that, and like just I'm not gonna, just rebel to rebel's sake of the time that like it's very, there's not a lot of chemistry between any of the actors. Like they're not all super overly friendly, but it's also not like forced. It's not like they're trying to force.
It feels.
It's like you got a group of strangers together off the street in the '80s, and here they are. Like it organically feels real.
There are times where there is a sense of like unity, like especially towards the end of the film with Keith David and Roddy Piper. But this outside of the corny dialogue, that's pretty much 95% Roddy Piper. You're right. This is kind of how people thrown into this position together would act, Yeah. And this is actually, it's funny because this is one of these double meaning scenes that we're leading to now, where like if you have watched this movie, you can reinterpret this scene for what it actually is. but he's trying to get her to put on the sunglasses. They go back to her house, and he's like, listen, you don't know what the fuck's going on. We're being invaded. Put on these sunglasses. And the genius of this scene is, if you've seen this movie, you understand that she's already bought and paid for by these aliens, right?
Yeah, because she's the director of the news station, you find out.
So she's deep in this at this point. Yeah. But she tells Rowdy, I'll put on the glasses, but I'm going to see whatever you tell me to see because you have a shotgun and I'm afraid of you. Like, they set it up to, we're going to paint him as the crazy guy again, right? But really, it's her subverting the fact that she knows he's already telling the truth, right? It's such, again, hats off to John Carpenter. The dude is so underrated. Like, it's crazy.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. Like really cleanly doing this. So essentially, of course, and this, I'm going to say it because I don't care, Adam, but of course the dumb broad fucks up everything and is a piece of shit and fucking ruins the whole plan because he's pretty much out at this point. He could safely get away at this point if it weren't for her.
Yeah.
And she beams him. She beams him over the fucking head with a bottle.
How great does he sell this fall, though? I mean,
that's death, right? If you're not Rowdy Piper and you get thrown it's like 3 stories.
Did he do his stunts, I'm assuming, for this movie?
I don't know how anybody does that stunt, Adam. I mean, that is 2+ stories, right? Like, he flies off the side of this cliffside house.
Yeah. He does a roll, too, doesn't he?
Oh, dude. He gets super fucked up. Basically, the next 10 minutes of this movie is Rowdy Piper getting super fucked up.
It's almost the scene that Hot Rod spoofs when he
it feels
that
like
long, incredibly painful fall.
Coming down the hill. Yeah, no, it's but you know what, though? And I don't want to make any kind of allegories or any kind of connections that aren't really there, but this kind of feels almost like Christ-like. This almost feels... No, and hear me out. I know it sounds crazy, but it almost makes me feel like this is now the savior of humankind, right? Has come to terms with the truth. He's trying to combat evil, and now this is the suffering. This is his suffering period, right? So he gets betrayed by the woman, and while he's betrayed, he somehow survives this miraculously, but he comes across Keith David at the construction site. He goes back to the construction site to find the one person he thinks he can trust, right?
He's just hiding behind some trailer, like, psst, come here.
And he's all fucked up, too. He's the craziest. And
Keith is like, no, I told you, get the fuck out of here.
And Keith David has such a human response. Like, a real human response.
Like, very organic, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he's lucky he has this job, right? He showed Roddy the homeless camp. He got him the job. Even when he got him the job, he's like, don't fuck this up for me. Yep. Here he is fucking up for me. Here's Keith David being like, I told you don't do that.
Yeah,
I'm not touching it.
Stay the fuck away from me, dude. You're fucking my shit up, dude.
And he sticks to that, hard line for a long time.
Because you know what?
Like real.
That's That's a real good man. He's actually a good man. He's actually a good father. Like Keith David here he's literally going. He knows Roddy's goofy, right? He spent enough time with Roddy to understand that this dude's a little bit off center. But you can tell that Keith David from the jump knows that there's a validity to Nada and what Nada's trying to say, and Keith David is trying to convince himself, like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear this shit. Like, whether you're right or wrong, I can't deal with this shit. Like, please don't.
Too much stuff. He's just starting to rebuild. Like it's clear up until he met Roddy, he'd fallen, and now he's starting to build himself up. So he's bringing somebody else up, he's helping because he got help, right?
Well, and now here we are, Adam. It has now led us to one of the most famous scenes in movie history. It's so famous that South Park did a shot-for-shot remake of this fight.
Did they?
Yeah, so it's when it's the Timmy and Jimmy fight at Boy Scouts. It's the one where Cartman goes, "Cripple fight!" and everyone in town rushes.
That's a shot-for-shot remake.
It is a shot-for-shot remake of this fight between Keith David and Roddy Piper, and They Live.
Wow, that's some good knowledge.
Dude,
I didn't know that.
It's so every time I watch that episode, I've probably mentioned it 30 times since we started doing this podcast together. I love John Carpenter. And this has been in my lexicon for a while. They Live has been a super important movie to me for most of my life, right? I became a huge South Park fan, like a diehard South Park fan, and by the time I rolled to that episode, bro, I had this like come to Jesus epiphany, like there are two of my favorite things have now become one, and I can die happy. Like this is so perfect.
I had no idea. Now I gotta watch that again.
Yeah, dude. You remember when a part in the fight scene where Keith David gets on top of Roddy Piper and just starts kneeing him in the nuts over and over again? Yep. Jimmy's doing that to Timmy, and okay, hold on, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. But there's at the beginning of this segment, they're basically led to the alleyway with the sunglasses, and Roddy Piper is trying to explain to Keith David, like, please just look at the sunglasses. You'll know I'm not crazy the second you put them on. Keith David's resisting, going, I'm not going to repeat what we just talked about, but making his deal. I can't do this. I can't be a part of this. And Roddy Piper essentially gives him an ultimatum. Put on the fucking sunglasses or I'm going to kick the living shit out of you. Like, one or the other, bro, because I'm not doing this. I'm not just going to let you walk away from this. Keith David tells him to go fuck himself, and they square up. Now, when I mean they square up, they old-timey, like real fucking men. This scene is like such a perfect example of what I think of masculinity. Like these two fucking bruisers square up old guy style and start circling each other, right? Like, it's just so... I'm just saying.
This is what I think of masculinity. What a ridiculous statement.
No, okay, so the fight loses its honor pretty quickly. We'll get into that, but at least it starts out honorably. Like everyone has a fair chance. Let's do this right. Like, two fucking guys should do this. And as they start fighting, Roddy Piper goes for a knee to the groin. He goes to knee Keith David in the nuts, and Keith David says he goes, "You dirty motherfucker." I laugh at that every time. You dirty motherfucker.
It's basically the opening match to SmackDown. Like,
yeah,
it's legit 30-minute wrestling.
Yeah, I think it's a 5 or 6 minute from start to finish. Like, legitimately a full 5-minute fight scene.
Yeah, it's like the big fight. Remember, what was it, Rocky V, when he fights him in the alley? Mm-hmm. Right? It's a big alley fight.
Though? A lot of times when you have these fight scenes, they might feel long, but if you actually sit there with a stop clock, it might be a minute and a half or something. Like they're cut together real fast. There is nothing fancy about this shot.
Because usually in those scenes, or like I think Rocky, but there's like cuts to the crowd and stuff.
Yeah, you have like 6 different cameras that you're bouncing from.
This is
1 or 2 cameras. They turn them on, and you just watch 2 guys beat the shit out of each other for 5 minutes.
Oh, goddamn brutal,
dude! It's so real, bro.
Even if it is only like a 5-minute fight scene, it feels like 50 because of how brutal it is. Because like just when you think one of them's down and it's over, like somebody lugs themselves over and like picks up a brick or some shit.
And you know what? A lot of these fight scenes are overly choreographed to the point where it's like silly, and it's like, I'm gonna do a backflip kick and you're gonna swing me through a window. This is legitimately what you would imagine if you stumbled into the alleyway and you saw 2 union guys beating the shit out of each other.
The actual life out of each other. Like, this very much feels like it starts off, no, I'm not putting on your glasses. Then it's like, fuck you, I'm just not going to do what you tell me. Then it's like, seriously, dude, what the fuck's going on? And then it's like, all right, I'm going to die if I don't kill you. Like, these are guys that are just slowly like, we're fighting for a lot, and they keep going.
And
like,
the fight evolving, too, is really cool. It really does get more and more and more violent as the fight goes on, and it starts getting crazier and crazier. And, like, what's so fucked up, and again, if you don't have the campiness, like, this is just too real. And these are 2 down on their luck, legitimately good men who just want to provide for them and their families. And they're now at this moral crossroads where, like, do we want to acknowledge the truth and deal with it, or do we want to live blindly and just worry about me? Like, the fight scene is brutal, but what it speaks to is much heavier.
I think that's probably why it goes on so long too, right? Because you would be wrestling with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, dude, like, they literally wrestle with the idea of handling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, dude. And this is such a fucking fantastic film to me. Roddy Piper in this film, Nada, the character, is the embodiment of like doing the right thing. Like, literally, not
all the way till the ending when he's just like, fuck it, and does it, you know? Like,
and we'll get to that, but the ending of this movie is perfect. I can't wait to talk about the ending of this movie because it's so funny. The ending of this film, I think, is only spans 10 or 15 minutes of the entire. I was
going to say, after the fight scene, like, it picks up
super fast.
Well, also, there's two kind of what we've been saying, like, why elaborate on something? One, that look around, you see it every day, and, you know, like, he doesn't just be replicating
the shots. You would just be replicating the original shots of Roddy Piper with the sunglasses if you elaborated on this.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, and you don't need to go into any more corruption because you've seen, like, too big you can imagine anything else. Like, there's not much that needs elaboration. John does a great, very concise job of finishing all the pieces,
putting everything in a nice little digestible box for you,
and driving us home. Like, he's like, here's the film. Here we go. Here's some weird corruption. Oh, it's everywhere. We got done. Like, that's it. And it's a nice bite-sized pill because it has to be, because what you're trying to digest is just such a big big thing.
They really do. John Carpenter he categorically puts everything in nice little boxes for you to be able to just digest at your pace. And so ultimately, Adam, fucking Rowdy Piper wins the fight and forces the glasses onto Keith David's face. And now Keith David can see everything, and he is now like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I told you I didn't want anything to do with this, and now you've just blown my whole life open. Like, there's no going back from this now.
No. Which he knew.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Which is why I think he was fighting so hard, because he knew.
Yeah.
And,
damn, that's so real.
He knows that big, but
that's so real, dude. What you just said, like, that's what I'm saying. That's what this is why this movie it's so hard not to fall down the rabbit hole, because it's just... These are moments that if any of this shit was really happening, which I kind of think it is, but these are realizations that any normal functioning guy could come to. Like, it's too, you know what's funny? We were just talking about how John Carpenter neatly made everything digestible, but it's almost too digestible to the point where it's like, it's too real. It's too easy to jump into this world. It's too easy to feel these things. Like, I'm feeling icky just even talking about it. Like,
it sends you down a spiral, man. Like, this is how you wind up scrolling Reddit at 3 a.m. Like,
yeah, dude.
God, the lizard people.
And you know what? You can watch this movie and completely dismiss it and laugh at it and be like, that was a waste of time.
Like, there's.
Well, that's it, though. I think you can really try to do that, but ultimately, you're going to watch this movie and you can laugh about it and say whatever you want, but the next time you're watching the news, the next time you're reading a paper, you're going to feel it. There's going to be a part of you that goes, ugh.
We talk about it anytime technology advances slightly in the surveillance state we have now. Everybody references 1984. You know, there's always a Orwell reference. Well, Christ, we're not that... Where's the Carpenter reference? We're pretty damn close to that. I mean,
dude. Well, you know what? Even how can I say this? So after this confrontation with Keith David and Roddy Piper, where he makes him puts on the sunglasses, they now come across the rest of the survivors. Right at this point.
Oh, and Keith's all fire. I love how we keep, because he has 2 first names. I keep calling him Keith David because it just
rolls off the tongue.
It feels better because
it's Keith David, man. If you don't know who Keith David is, shame on you.
Fucking Keith David is. Get out of here. If you should be watching this podcast, knowing Keith David is. Get out of here. He's all fired up though. Like he's got the glasses on. Roddy's like, you gotta take them off. You're gonna get a headache. And he's like, what do we do? We gotta go. And he's like,
yeah, dude. Well, you know what's funny is again, this is really clever writing. You're seeing two people dealing with the same issue that are on two different stages of dealing with it. Right.
We're seeing Roddy again, right? He's all fired up to go to the bank, and then we have the Roddy that just got his ass handed to him, like.
Yeah, you have now. It's funny. We are at stoic Roddy Piper now, who's like, all right, no, it's time. The fooling around's over with. Like, we're gonna handle this.
Yeah. He's coming up with a game plan, and
so they're running. They are running. They get
informed about the meeting somehow, though, and I don't remember how.
Say that again.
How do they get informed about the meeting?
Originally, I think that we kind of glossed over it at the beginning, but I think whenever there was at the beginning when the police destroyed the little shanty town, the group of survivors kind of run into each other while they're running away, and they kind of set up the idea that there is this resistance group. So sorry to the listeners, but we did kind of gloss over that. Now you.
I have. I'm not sure. So we're getting on the tail end, and I'm just reading my notes, and two things I wrote down that maybe you might know. I'm not sure what I meant. I have brother, life's a bitch, and she's back in heat.
Brother, life's a bitch, and she's back in heat. I love that line.
Roddy says that to Keith, right, in the hotel room when he's like.
Well, Keith is going. The context of that scene is like, as you said it yourself, Keith David's kind of like, he's kind of tripping balls, like, what the fuck do we do? And he's like, this is fucked up. Like, this is fucked up. This is so fucked up. And basically, Roddy Piper's like, yup, this shit's fucked up. Just confirming, yup, this is terrible.
Shit's fucked. What do you want me to do? Yeah. And then the razor blade story.
The razor blade story. Oh, you mean while they're sitting at the hotel room in the night, like just talking to each other?
Yeah. What was that story? Why did I write that down?
I'm trying to remember the context of that conversation. I think so they pull their money together and they go to this hotel room and they're hanging out and they're trying to figure out a battle plan. And hold on, I'm stalling here for a second because I think I can answer your question. Okay, so yeah, I don't know actually. Now that I think about it, I don't even have anything written for that conversation. The whole time that's just basically me trying to calm.
Oh, wait. This is where he's talking about growing up and his dad. This is where we learn. That's right. This is where we learn about Nada and his origin story.
Oh, yes.
He runs away from home younger than, he was 13 or 14 because his dad was beating him and cutting him with a razor blade or something.
Yeah,
like that.
That's what it was. He was cutting him with a razor blade. That's so weird. That's so dark and and it's so funny. It's not really needed, but it's just randomly dark.
So Carpenter does that though in his movies. Sees Halloween 3. The doctor, the protagonist, he's an alcoholic in that film. Just because, there's no resolve to that storyline in that movie. There's no anything. Hopefully, we get to talk about it on this. But he's an alcoholic just because.
Now that you talk about it,
just because.
Carpenter does like to have the archetype characters, like the crazy preacher or the drunk old wise man or something. Yeah, no, right. That's true. That's super true.
Yeah. So he's a doctor, so he has to be philandering and a drunk because.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think it does this really cool.
He have a dark, abusive past because why else would you be drifting across the country, right? I get it. It's funny that there's unless you know that trope or that common theme in film, society, whatever. It's it just seems silly. Like,
well,
why?
it's funny that you say that. I think it's because you're supposed to. It's like, and it's not specific to Carpenter, but it's a motif in the way he writes. I think you're supposed to have a different perception of a character than what actually is underneath the surface. Like, you're supposed to. You're being introduced to an idea where you think it's one way, but it's actually the other way. You know what I mean? So you come across
he's a good guy, but he has like a real messed up past.
You get like a drifter guy who's like hanging out in the background and he's like following Keith David around and he's just being kind of a creep. But really, like, he's really this 14-year-old kid who ran away from home who's just been trying to take care of himself, and he's really always been that kid. You know, and he's kind of looking out. He's like almost like a dog that's been hit or something, you know, like just that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of heavy shit in this movie that if it weren't for the funny, silly dialogue, it's just a little bit too close to home. You know what I mean?
Even still, the way it is a movie, like it ends and you just go, oof.
Dude, like, the ending of this movie is so fucking perfect. It's so perfect. You know, never mind. I want to elaborate on so much, but we got to get there.
We have this really great habit of at least doubling the time of the movie that we're talking about. Because
we got about 25 more minutes until we actually run the full runtime of this movie.
I think we're going to have to make some choices moving forward, whether it's lean more to commentary or plot points, because this combination of both.
Well, you know what? This is a tough one because this is a deep one. It would be easy. This isn't like a silly 80s. Well, okay, the bad guy gets his comeuppance now. Like, it's not that.
We'll put like a jump in the beginning of this podcast. Like, sorry, it's a long one.
Sorry. Really it's a good one though. So
it's probably our best one.
They reunite with Greasy Gilbert, right?
Greasy Gilbert, damn, the alliteration too.
They get Greasy Gilbert, and this is so cool. Now they can lose the sunglasses because they have contact lenses they can put in.
And nobody had any problems putting on contact lenses without a mirror.
Yeah, except for if you watch Rowdy Piper, you can clearly tell he's never put in contacts before in his life.
I remember my first time when I wore contacts, like putting them in. I didn't get them in. Like, I tried, and I didn't. I cried, and I didn't try them for a week.
Adam, these are two super competent men, okay? They can handle little old pussy contact lenses, dude.
You say that, but have you ever had your eyes fucked with? I mean, sand feels huge.
All right, so this is a part of the movie where, not that I pull away, but they start getting a little bit too specific here. You have them explaining that the aliens have taken over the Earth, and not only are they trying to essentially own the Earth and deplete it of its natural resources, they're actually using global warming to make the planet more habitable to their species. They're like terraforming the planet, like they're General Zod, changing the fucking planet.
Which is, I mean, I think is just it ties in though, right? Because they push consumerism, and our god is money, and we love.
I like the idea of them being the evil characters being more healthy in a poisoned Earth is actually there's cool symbolism there.
I mean, think about all the stuff that you find out's going on underneath in Hollywood, right? Mm-hmm. They're all super healthy, super rich, got this, They on the outside, much like the aliens that they are, right? They present them, celebrities in general, right? Especially the elite, present themselves as very pretty and put together and all this, but they're either wrecks, insane, or just horrible.
No, you're right. It is this veneer level of like, look, and even in the way they present themselves in terms of like their social behavior, like, oh, look at me, like I'm a benevolent person. I care. I care for people.
Is who comes to mind for me, because she just has this condescending way of making her seem like she's so much better than everybody.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think what's really funny is all the aliens in this film, like all the blue aliens, when they're in their human form or whatever, all of them do come across as these rich, cocky, condescending.
They're to make some of the banter that you catch is like they're making fun of the pattern somebody chose for an invitation, or can you believe so and so?
Yeah, all of their conversations are super superficial. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
See, this is what I'm talking about, Adam. We laugh at this silly Carpenter B movie, but the truth is, it's so real. It's so real.
Yeah, I am not. Yeah, not really. I don't even like the resolve of this, though. Right? Like, we gotta get like.
Well, wait, hold on, wait. So as they put on they put on the context, right? And they're explaining the whole global warming thing, but they shift the conversation. And this is really clever writing. And if you get the chance to watch this again after the fact, you'll notice it. They switch the conversation to the idea of there being human collaborators and humans working with them. And as they're talking about it, fucking who comes walking through the door is Holly.
Right, because they say human collaborators, and then they say we need a bigger signal, or it sounds like the signal's coming from so-and-so. Haven't anybody checked the news station? And then, bam, she comes through.
To save the day, here comes the news lady.
Of course, you buy into it because I was so worried. I thought I killed you. Mm-hmm. She has this really empathetic plea, like she's selling.
Yeah, dude, if I was Roddy Piper in that scene, I would have immediately known that she was full of shit. Just me personally, I would immediately been like, hey, she's one of them. I feel it immediately. As soon as she walked in the room.
That is my, I guess, cross the bears. I immediately just assume everybody's telling the truth.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, Adam, I am biased against women. I think they're liars.
God, I am so happy you have two daughters.
They're terrible people. Eve doomed of us all. It's in the Bible, folks. Get with it. It's the truth. It's there. It's been written since the beginning of time. Terrible people they are. But no. So and as they're explaining what their next move is and how little numbers they are, and like there's only so many of them left, and this is everybody. Like we're getting to the end here, folks. Like we got to make something happen. Of course, the police raid it. They the police show up and start taking over. Right. Because they just magically know where these people get together, Adam.
Well, right, and I think to your point about the woman, which if you go back and watch, everybody is bolting out of there and running away, super scared about the raid, but she's just kind of walking across the street. Like she's kind of looking just to like. All right, I'm not going to run it. But, like, she's not.
Yeah, first viewing of that, you're going to go, that's strange. Subsequent viewings, you're going to be like, that sneaky bitch.
Yeah. Which, again, like, very real. It's not slapped in front of your face, like, look here.
Cartoonishly obvious.
Right. Yeah. Like, it's very subtle and it's very organic. It's very real.
This movie does not treat the viewers like idiots at all.
No,
it intellectually respects the viewer and allowing you to figure some of this shit out and see. You know what I mean? It's again, Carpenter is a genius, and he's super underrated. And like, you can you'll never see They Live on a list of perfect movies with like Scorsese films and stuff. But honestly, though, like just the subtle nature in how he writes sometimes is so good.
Oh my God.
Saying so much with so very little.
The ending of The Thing. I mean, like, it's just all we got to watch more Carpenter. We got to talk about more Carpenter.
And we will. We absolutely will. I love Carpenter so much. But so this leads them having another confrontation with police where one of the aliens' fancy wristwatches that we've been seeing throughout the entire film has some sort of malfunction and a portal opens up. Now, up to this point, the aliens have been able to kind of Star Trek beam them in and out of situations with this watch. This watch has a malfunction and says, hey, this is an emergency window. It's only open for 10 seconds. Like, if you need to use it now, and then we'll figure it out once you get back to base kind of deal.
Right.
They decide to jump through the portal, and now they are in what kind of looks like an underground bunker. But
Yeah.
But it's essentially the headquarters for this alien-human collaborative force, right? Like, this is their...
Is it... Yeah, so is it a spaceship that they're on, right? Or is this actually underground Earth?
So, I don't know. I think this is a double-edged sword. They don't use the watch again, right? They don't use the watch again.
No, because from here they get the tour from their friendly southern friend.
Yeah, well, okay, so, but here's my point, though. If they don't use the watch again, then they're still on Earth.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a scene where the drifter from the beginning who's trying to convince everybody not to ask questions just to go along with the flow.
Yeah.
Turns out he's one of the human collaborators. He sees Keith David, Roddy Piper, recognizes them, and assumes that they are now collaborators. So now he's going to give him the grand tour and do the grand reveal of everything. Like, here's why all of this is important, folks. Right?
Right.
He takes him to what I believe is like some sort of transporter, like a transport station that allows you to transport all over the universe.
Like a big, yeah.
Right. They go into this big eyes wide shut Illuminati dinner ball thing where, you know, the aliens are up at a podium explaining to everybody, like, this has been a success for everybody involved. Like, we're all going to be rich. Thank you for doing this. Right.
Yes.
And they get the swarmy drifter guy to get them access into the broadcast station where the news anchors are telling the news. Right.
How do they get from the underground layer?
I think the way I interpret it is that they are underneath the news station.
Okay.
That the news station is essentially the central hub of this operation.
Okay. That makes sense. All right.
And I don't think, I take it back. I don't know if they're in San Francisco. They might be in L.A.
Either one.
I don't remember, but I digress. Yeah. So they get to...
Still haven't fixed that homeless problem in either of those cities. I mean,
there is a news broadcast going on that is the door is being guarded by 2 armed guards with machine guns, which already says, okay, that Carpenter is very blatantly taking a shot at the news at this point, right? Like, for there to be armed guards at the news says all you need to know from the jump, right? But and what's so funny is, of course, both anchors are aliens. Of course they are. Like, why wouldn't they be? Of course. And Roddy Piper and Keith David finally have this enough is enough moment. They storm in. They start shooting everybody, right? And
literally everybody.
Like gangsters, just taking people out. Yeah. And they're sweeping hallways. They're clearing floors. They're gangster style, right? And ultimately, it leads them to Holly, right?
Yes,
right.
Who does take them to the satellite?
Yeah, they're going to the satellite, but Rowdy Piper wants to find Holly because he cares about her. Stupid fool, dummy. And this is
the only part that did feel a little forced. Not like Seagal forces himself on women, but a little bit like that, like there wasn't that much of a relationship.
To your original point, I think this is a product of its era, and I think at the time audiences are probably assuming like, well, it's the one pretty lady in the movie, he has to get the girl, like that's what has to happen, right? Which is great because he uses that against the viewer. He takes your expectations and he flips them on you.
That's true.
Right? That's true. So you go into the scene kind of rolling your eyes like, well, I guess he got the girl and they're going to go save the day. But as they're running up the steps to get up to this transmitter, because they're going to take down the whole transmitter, right? That's going to allow everyone to see the truth, right?
Right.
As they're running up the steps, there's this really cool quick shot scene where Roddy Piper runs ahead. Holly grabs Keith David, sticks a gun to his head, and blows his fucking brains out.
Which is
brutal.
So it's like, because at this point, right? Because now the pacing's picking up in the film. We're through it all. All right, mad dash. He found the chick.
Yeah, we're at the end. We're at the finish line.
This is it. Like,
yeah.
Bam. Like, you have no idea. It's like round the corner, fist in the face. Like, dead.
Yeah, and it's funny because these are the two characters through the entire process that you're actually supposed to care about.
Right.
You know,
they're the only two people we know besides
Greasy Gilbert.
Oh well, yeah.
No, but really, they're the only people that you can actually have some sort of bond with at this point, right?
Right.
And Keith David, the one guy who didn't want to get involved, the one guy who just wanted to take care of his family, immediately gets a gun stuck to the side of his head and just bam, see ya.
Exactly what basically his worst fear came to light, you know? Like at the end of the day he knew he didn't want to die.
And and you know what? Maybe he knew. Maybe from the onset of this whole process, maybe he knew somewhere in his heart.
To your point earlier about corruption, right? Like, I mean, at what point, how big, you know, at some point people know, how many people know all that. Like, yeah, I'm sure he had an inkling something's going on in this world, but was just, no, I'm fine, you know?
Yeah. And you know, who can't relate to that? Who can't just,
I
just want to take care
I feel like that's most of society anymore. It's just like, just fucking leave me alone. Leave me alone. I just want to do my thing.
Yeah, right. Right, and it's so heartbreaking. Like, you know, when you take on the role of the guy who's going to fight the monster, if you get eaten by the monster, well, you decided to fight the monster. When you're just trying to avoid the monster and you get eaten, that's a fucking bummer, man.
I think what makes this even more disheartening is, like, to be steps away.
Yeah, right there.
You know, this is losing the championship. You know, this is
you missed the buzzer beater, dude.
Yeah, this is throwing the grand slam or the tying run by, you know, like this is dropping the.
Well, so right away, so this greasy bitch does our boy in, and I'm so pissed. Like, I actually am annoyed. Like, you fucking greasy motherfucker. Like, you motherfucker.
I have written down fucking Holly.
And
Frankie shot ? Fucking Holly.
Yeah, you fucking douchebag. They get up to the roof. She pulls the gun on Rowdy, and she's like, "All right."
Who has solid hair flow in this scene.
Oh, beautiful.
I mean,
beautiful
we got
mullet.
A nice night shot, bright lights. The helicopter is about to rise.
He should have a duster on, honestly. It would make the scene more perfect if he had a duster on.
Damn. Or even if he just wore his wrestling outfit.
Yeah.
You know,
if he was just in his kilt looking sweet.
Yeah.
But So now Rowdy is at the finish line. The transmitter's in front of him. He got this bitch behind him who's holding him at gunpoint, and now there's a police helicopter. And it is just, as you said it, you just said it. Like, we made it so far just for this to get, you know,
rug get pulled right out.
Yeah, dude. And it this whole any kind of pace that this movie had been building, any kind of momentum. It's now all gone at this point. Like, it is all just like, fuck. Oh,
yeah. No. I mean, it dead stop because now we're back to like, well, what's going to happen? Because again, it's a short runtime. So now you're like, if you first were timed through, or is there more?
Yeah, like and you know what? They do a good job at making you think that this is how it's going to end. The bad guys win. This is the Empire Strikes Back, dude.
Yeah.
And of course, and this is the symbolism in this is really special. This is what I wanted to talk about, Adam. Rowdy Piper comes to this moment where he realizes it's over for him one way or another. Like, this is the end of the road for Nada. Our main character is going to die in front of us right now. Like, this is going to happen. But I don't know if you want to call it patriotism, if you want to call it just his internal strength or his internal stoicism, whatever you want to attribute.
Love for humankind in general.
And I know you kind of smirked at me before when I said this Jesus thing, but here we go. Like,
it's only because of my utter disbelief in the man's religion.
No. But what I'm saying is, in terms of like the storyboarding. This is what it's...
Waterboarding? We're waterboarding Jesus. Is that what this podcast is?
But no, this is now the final sacrifice of our main protagonist, and this is gonna bring it all home for us, right? So, in the process of basically getting gunned down horrifically, he shoots the transmitter explodes. Though our main character now this is so great here. So this is such like a heavy scene because he's sacrificing himself for everybody. Right. He sacrifices his life so we can live. The transmitter is destroyed, and this is so great, dude, because this is probably like a 2-minute scene. It's very quick, but the transmitter is now destroyed, and now it allows every normal day-to-day human to see everything that you were able to see with the sunglasses or the contact lenses, right? So, like, you got people watching the news, and they see the anchors are aliens. You got people at the bar, they turn around, the guy next to him is a fucking alien. It's so great how they all get exposed, like, across the board, all across the world, all at the same time, like, little by little.
So... is it across the world? Because my pessimistic outlook with this movie kind of always has been, he sacrifices himself, he shoots the transmitter. Great. It's the 80s, granted alien technology, but how far does that one transmitter work? Are there multiple transmitters? Is this happening in multiple cities?
Well, okay, so back to the...
for the greater Los Angeles area, and... motherfuckers in New York are still going through.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. You don't really necessarily know how far the reach goes, but you know what? Again, back to what I was saying before about this having a very specific American perspective to it.
Yeah,
it really does give you a sense that the little people, quote unquote, can fight back. Like now we're in a position where we can kind of deal with this, right?
It does. And I think he does a nice job in trying to have this like somewhat uplifting resolve, to give us you win because, again, subject material and how dark it is. But like the real dig deeper into that is protagonist died and sacrificed. But like I don't know. I'm gonna have to call John and be like, what is the plot to this film? Are these the only aliens? Or are there more? Because that changes it dramatically for me.
Well, what it does is...
I always thought that he just sacrificed himself for the city and it still was meaningless and everybody is still being controlled by them forever because that's the way. Not a conspiracy podcast.
No, that's true. What you're making a valid point, but I think for me, what it does is, if anything, the victory in itself is the ability to see, right? The victory is the veil coming off. Right, so we can explore these ideas of how deep their reach goes, how far this transmitter was controlling people. Like, there's a lot of questions that are left unanswered, but ultimately, the victory is the veil is off the people, and now the people can see the truth.
The victory is just having a movement in general, right? So I guess to our initial question when we opened this, who knows corruption when and how far back does this go? Even if he did just save the city, well, now that whole city is much larger.
Yeah, well, how you deal with it is how you deal with it doesn't really matter. Just the concept that you're able. You have to look at this as a viewer. If you're coming from the perspective of Keith David, right? You're almost like, I don't want to deal with this. Right. You're being forced to. Now you're forced to see, right? How you move forward is your choice, but we're here now. Like, there's no denying it.
It's red pill, blue pill, right? You know?
And then it ends kind of on a very funny, tongue-in-cheek kind of way, where there's a hooker riding. We don't know if it's a hooker. I assumed it was a hooker, but it's a woman having sex with a blue alien, and she looks down and realizes she's riding a blue alien. And it immediately cuts the credits, and it's so perfect.
I loved the anchor scene because they don't know. They're still just rattling on the news and like
you hear people in the background like freaking out. It's genius, dude. This movie's genius.
So good.
So it's safe to say, Adam, we both agree without a shadow of a doubt that you need to watch this movie.
Yeah, I mean, we just spoke for like 2.5 hours to tell you, fuck this film. Don't ever. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's every person's duty to watch it, right? Like all the anti-conspiracy propaganda, right, as they call it. Like V for Vendetta or anything that just blatantly is like, hey, this stuff, it's happening, just to the scale or not, just be aware. Like, yes, this is important.
Here's the kicker, man. This is, to me, this is appropriately timed. Like, us reviewing this film sits perfectly in the social climate of today. And if you want to talk about woke, homie, this is it. This is the literal visual representation of being woke.
Yeah.
And if that's something that you're even remotely interested in, or even if if you sit on the other end of the spectrum, even if you're not into the conspiracy theories, even if you're one of the compliant people, it's visually what the scenes that Carpenter pull off, just the storytelling, like it's worth it. Like no matter how you come to this, it's worth it.
The pacing, the chemistry between the actors, the delivery, like all of it's organic. It feels real. It doesn't feel this whole podcast. It's B-level at best movies, right? Like this doesn't. It feels like it's one of the better. It's probably one of Carpenter's best.
I would agree. I think, and you know what?
At least just in subject matter alone.
If you were to stick a different director's name, if you were to put Martin Scorsese's name in front of this movie, I bet it does make one of those best movie ever lists, But I think
it's only because he would probably just
unfortunately
alone get a bigger budget for production. I think is really, which it doesn't come across because it's from the 80s, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's a cheap movie.
Yeah, like, it really doesn't. I mean, there's a couple times where if you're savvy enough to filmmaking or you're savvy enough to how things work on a technical
but it's not
level.
like trauma. It's not like a trauma film, right? No. You're not talking Toxic Avenger here.
Yeah, like this is an Uwe Boll level fucking shitty production. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think there's a stigma attached to Carpenter's name. Like he's had a couple goofy ass B movies that have kind of that I think have rightfully overshadowed a lot of his best work, and this would be definitely some of his best work.
I think he shoots himself in the foot sometimes by accident. Like he doesn't realize how good his stuff is, and then he puts it out there, and then the studios are like, "Well, we're going to need more of that." And he's like, "But I really think like we could do something cool," and they're like, "Nah, just keep making that."
Well, you know what? I'm going to give him props, and this is just me personally. This is my personal bias, but he is, to me, that is a traditional American storyteller. Like he's telling these fantasized sci-fi versions of John Wayne and Clint Eastwood movies. That's how I feel John Carpenter is. Like watching the good, the bad, and the ugly with space lasers or something. Like that's how I feel about John Carpenter. Yeah. And this movie is a masterpiece to me. He knocks it out of the park. I mean,
I mean, it's not even. I mean, we kept saying it was camp, but I mean, I guess. Yeah, there's a range of Carpenter films, right? We're not talking Big Trouble in Little China, but
hey, wait a minute. Hey, pump the brakes there. That's also a masterpiece, sir. Big Trouble in Little China is genius.
What I'm saying is there is just fucking I'm goofy Carpenter, and then there's like I got something to say.
Yeah, but you know what, though? Even when you take those two extremes, I still think even when you have like a silly Kurt Russell or a Roddy Piper, he's taking his definition of what an American man should be. Like, that's how an American man is supposed to be.
Man?
I'm serious.
Like
they all
you some sexual identity issues. Why do you keep referencing
they're all the same dude, slightly different variations of each other.
Yeah.
Like they're all the same exact kind of person. And it's funny. We used to joke. We have this bit between me, Danny, Denny, and Joe. We have a bit about who our celebrity fathers are, and mine's always been Kurt Russell because I think of it like that's I want Kurt Russell to be my dad. But we used to joke because my dad. Have you ever seen the film Captain Ron? It's like he's just a douchebag, but he's like he saves the day, but he's a douchebag. We always used to joke and call my dad Captain Ron, right? So I've always had this affinity for the for Kurt Russell, man. But like this is exactly. Damn it! I knew I should have went down this rabbit hole. But,
let's keep going. No, it's good. Yeah.
But my point is though. I personally identify with that because I see a lot of those characteristics in my dad. Like my dad, this is his era. These movies that we're talking about, this is his era. And this is the type of guy that these movies are written for. And I really identify with that. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So when Carpenter tells a story, he sticks to these archetypes and these motifs for a reason, and they work. You know, they work.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. They're timeless. I mean,
if you consider yourself middle class or blue collar or if you just any kind of an everyman, if you have any kind of any association with that, there's no way that you can't see what John Carpenter's trying to do here. You know, like they have cartoonish dialogue, but these are regular. These aren't superheroes. These aren't guys that don't get their asses beat. A lot of his protagonists get the shit kicked out of them. They're not these.
Does a great job as far as, you know, that's the heroes in literature, right? Hero's journey, like it refuses the mission outright. That's the first thing, right? And he does a really good job in a lot of his films of not only having a character that just openly isn't equipped to take on the situation, but also doesn't want to and fights it at first. Because it's American. That's just a real reaction.
To use the word that you used a couple times during this podcast, Adam, organic, real. These are real emotions. These are real things. And I think a lot of times when you write these stories, it's easy to write what you think should be said, or to write what you fantasize about. You know what I mean? To take it to these artistic levels, where I think Carpenter keeps it very meat and potatoes, and it serves the purpose of the film really well.
Yeah.
And it serves the purpose of a lot of his films really well, you know, like, and no, don't get me wrong. You still have the cartoonish, like the Donald Pleasance in Halloween, or the street preacher in this movie. You have the super, I'll call it the Shakespearean fucking, like the Broadway actor who goes over the top and is like a caricature of something, right?
Yeah, like the three fools in Macbeth, or
but ultimately, what it does is it highlights the regular man qualities of your protagonist.
Yeah,
right. Like, so I just across the board, if you like a good story, if you like good filmmaking, if you like cinematography, if you like wrestling, if you like good one-liners, if you like conspiracy, like, it checks so many boxes. This is an action, comedy, horror, suspense, like just
match.
Literally, like bop, 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 bop. It's this whole roller coaster of amazing things, and it's my personal opinion that this is everybody's duty to watch this movie.
It is, yeah, and you should follow it up by watching The Thing.
Yeah,
because
we'll get there.
David, we gotta keep rolling on the Keith David train at some point.
Also, it's your duty to like, share, and subscribe this. Help us grow a little bit. We got a nice little beginning following that's really kind, and they're really supportive, but we'd like to grow a little bit more. So help us out here. Even if you just copy the link, like if you watch this on YouTube and you just click on copy link, it'll help us in an algorithm.
And we're doing hashtag waterboard Jesus. Is that what we decided on?
Oh, no, dude. We're gonna start a T-shirt line. That's the first one, dude. Waterboarding Jesus, dude.
Do you think it'd be a more efficient way, or?
You know what? I don't think it matters, Adam. I think we could dress like drag queens, and we could be sitting on elephants right now, and I don't think it would affect the amount of people watching or not watching.
I mean, I will still watch us regardless, so it's fine.
We're doing good. We got positive feedback. People like this. We're gonna keep.
We we gotta cut our run times down, but we.
Speaking of, we're coming on about hour 40.
Actually, I thought that was longer than it was. It's still long, but it's not too bad. I thought we were like 2+.
It's gonna be a long one today, but it wasn't too bad. We thank you, everybody, for sticking around. Adam, do you have any final thoughts on this that you'd like to?
Watch this film and take about a week to decompress from it.
Yeah, you're gonna need it. And honestly, try to suspend your disbelief for a little bit. And I really think a lot of these messages are gonna cement themselves into you. I really do believe that. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Keep watching, and Adam, you're gay.
We're ending so eloquently.
Goodbye, everybody. See ya.